You ready?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your fears, Will.
Talk about my fears.
We'll treat this like a coaching session. What are you scared of?
Everything.
Okay, well, let's put that out there first, and then we'll avoid the things that you're scared of. In a discussion between two white men
Yeah.
on immigration,
Yeah.
what's the worst that can happen? Where do you not want this to go?
It could just get very bad very
Okay,
quickly.
okay, listen to this. Immigrants. You're laughing nervously. Is the fact that a white man is saying the word immigrants, does that make you nervous?
It's like the Louis C.K. YouTube video, and I still can't say the word, and it makes me shudder and makes my chest get hard when I listen to his bit.
Your chest gets hard?
My chest gets tight.
Jesus.
When I listen to the Louis
Freudian.
C.K. bit, but he does on the N-word.
Right. November.
And November. Yeah, that scares me a lot. Not that all immigrants are black people, and not that all black people would go along with what Louis C.K. is saying in his YouTube clip that he does his bit on, but it still scares me.
What's the scary thing?
What's the scary thing? It's been missed that anyone can perceive anything in any way.
So, what are you scared of?
Well, okay. I was listening to a few podcasts the other day.
I love the fear on the lad's face. Okay, so let's just give people a bit of context here. You've got a degree in sociology.
I do.
And you've got a master's in criminology.
I know. I've got a master's in statistics and gender research.
Okay, so you've sociology, a master's in statistics and gender research, and your political leanings are left and liberal.
Yeah, left of centre.
Left of centre, and you're fairly liberal on most things.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
More lazy and can't be asked, really, if I'm really thinking about anything.
So, well, that's fairly standard operational procedure
Yeah.
for people who are left and liberal.
Yeah.
to be honest, no, I'm left and liberal, but I look at the people who I'm stood shoulder to shoulder with, and I'm like, you people are bellends, aren't you? I mean, really? Do you even fucking have any beliefs, or are you just here because you think it's cool? Are you just here because you're brainwashed by Hollywood? I mean, the conservatives and the far right lot, they're a bunch of tits as well. But the problem with those tits is when they take the piss out of liberals, I agree with 90% of what they're saying. I'm like, these are valid complaints that they have about our camp.
Our camp.
Well,
actually, what I'm getting towards at the moment, and I've been reading quite a bit about Macron, and I've been thinking about it recently, is I really, really, really dislike, not ideology, but an ideology that doesn't allow you to do what's best for one's country. So I'd prefer someone, or a party or someone, kind of like Macron, would come out and say, I have no leanings either way. My policies aren't going to be based on any ideology I've grown up with since I was very young. I'm just going to pick the best policy for every situation that I think would do best for the country. That's what I'd kind of like someone to come out and say in England, but I don't know whether it's plausible or possible, or what everyone would think, or what everyone would just think they're weak, namby-pamby, and they have no ideas.
Okay, I feel you, and I know what you're saying, but you know what the counter-argument to that is.
What, they're weak and have no ideas?
Well, they're not offering anything. You're like, what is your position? Our position is that we will do whatever we think is best on every individual subject at any given moment in time. That sounds very intelligent, actually.
Yeah.
and it's the position of a reasonable person. That would be like the Chris Rock philosophy. On some issues, I'm conservative, and on some issues, I'm liberal. If you go out and you murder somebody, I think you should be murdered. If you're at home taking drugs, I don't think that's a crime. You should be allowed to take drugs. No, but I mean, your nervousness, and I'm not being a bully. Your nervousness is quite. I think it's common. I think it's normal. And I think where you're coming from is a place of fear. But I want you to explore for yourself what it is you're scared of. Two white men in a room from the northwest of England. And we're going to discuss immigration. And we're also going to discuss Islam. But I didn't tell you that before you came.
Yeah, that's scary.
Because I knew that you just wouldn't show up. But what's your biggest fear apart from having your head cut off? Listen, it's okay.
I think one of my biggest fears is being labelled as someone who's Well, I want to say, if I want to use a better word other than idiot, but
What kind of idiot?
well, to someone who hasn't looked around and read around and tried to understand what they're talking
You're
about.
so liberal. You mean a yob?
Yob,
You don't
yeah.
even want to be offensive to the idiots, do you? You mean some lager-swilling, red-top reading yob who's never been anywhere, doesn't know anything, and calls every brown person a Paki and if you say to them, well, actually they're from Bangladesh, they'll be like, oh, lardy fucking da, they're all the same, aren't they? Arabs and Pakis and that, they're all into that Muslim Islamism or whatever it is. Those are the people you're talking about, mate. They're fucking morons.
Yeah.
You can say that. They're just fucking idiots. So you don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me... I think it's a worthwhile thing to put forward. Do you think that you're... Are you scared of being labelled racist?
No, because I'm not a racist.
Are you scared of being labelled a bigot?
No.
Well, why are you scared of being in the same camp as those same yobs then?
Because
What's the fear?
it's interpretation, isn't it? And I think it depends on some very intelligent people that have been lectured by have a sort of postmodern leaning.
Right.
So, as I understand postmodernism, there's no ideology. Their whole life background has chosen who they are, etc. So it's been built up over time.
Yeah.
There's no external forces on them creating who they are, whatever.
Yeah.
But they would often say that but they seem to say in the same sentence. But because you've grown up there and the factors creating your life, you can only really have one train of thought because of your experience.
Yeah.
And because we come from what was the whitest place in Britain per capita,
Which is the Wirral.
we could potentially have some type of leaning that we wouldn't necessarily be thinking about.
This is absolutely pitiful. So you're scared that you might actually be a secret crypto racist and not even... It's so brainwashed into you that you don't even know it's there and we're going to uncover it.
Yeah.
The idea that you're not scared of being labelled a bigot is false. The idea that you're not scared of being labelled a racist is false. You're terrified of being labelled as a racist. And I'm scared of being labelled as a racist, but I don't have the neurotic boot-shaking fear that you have. I'm just moderately scared because it's the worst thing nowadays. It's like it's become the worst thing somebody can be labelled. And this is important. Like, we need to establish this up front in order to be able to have this debate.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that Muslims,
Yeah.
be they brown, white, black, Chinese or whatever, understand your position.
Mm-hmm.
Immigrants from everywhere in the world understand your position
Yeah.
very well,
Yeah.
in a nuanced way. And that means that some people are very sympathetic to your position,
Yeah.
and some people are all too ready to exploit the fact that you're scared of being labelled a racist.
But I don't think because someone has more melanin in their skin that makes them different to me.
They have more melanin in their skin.
Yeah.
What have they been doing, rubbing melanin in their skin?
I don't know.
Say it properly, William. What do they have in their skin?
Melanin?
Melanin? Why did you say it like that? You sound like Ron Burgundy. Melanin? I have melanin? You don't think because somebody has more melanin in their skin that they're different to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, you're sounding like a nervous liberal. But you do treat people differently when they're from different ethnic backgrounds, really, don't you? It's okay.
I don't think so, no. But then I don't genuinely see, this is another one of the issues I was talking about of growing up, where we've grown up and then going to university where I went to university.
Yeah.
Is that I think I've got one friend who isn't a WASP.
A WASP?
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Right.
And that's just circumstance.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's surge ahead with this, but let's just acknowledge the fact that you're very nervous about this. And a lot of people are very, very nervous about this. But that, nobody's going to jump all over you if you put a foot wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like a minefield that you're skipping through.
Yeah.
You've got to, and part of the problem that we're facing at the moment, the reason why a book like Against the Double Blackmail, written by Zizek, would even be needed to be written and would even get published, is because of this situation that we're living in, where there have become this implicit, strongly held injunctions, there are certain things you're not even allowed to discuss, that you get nervous about discussing it in a public forum.
Okay.
You wouldn't be nervous in a pub with a pint because you're not thinking, fuck, if I put a foot wrong and it's in a public forum, everybody's going to jump up and down on me.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you might be exposed, you might say the wrong thing, and you might say the wrong word, and that's the fear. We've got to push back against that.
Okay.
Because all that word policing and thought policing is doing is shutting down a proper debate. And it's not just you, mate. This goes right the way up to the politicians running the country.
Yeah.
They're terrified. What bothers me is that Theresa May and the people around her are terrified of what people on Twitter will say. And they respond to what people on Twitter and people on the social media networks will say. And I'm like, that's fucked up. That's crazy. We can't all be shitting ourselves and nervous of our own shadows because of what people are going to say on social media. It shuts down the debate and it's not helpful.
No.
I don't think that anybody really wants, and no sane person really wants to drive racial prejudice underground. That's worse.
Yeah.
That's way worse.
Yeah.
And it's highly likely. I know that you're supposed to say, I don't think that because somebody has a different shaped face or a different amount of melanin in their skin that I treat them differently. You do. Black people treat you differently.
I don't. I mean, in my experience, they haven't. But
how would you fucking know?
No, exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever been black and then showed up the next day white?
No, true.
So you know there is. And that's, you know, you might go, oh shit, that's racism. That might mean that, like, there's the seed of racism inside of me. Or it might be classism. It might be a socio-economic issue. Or it might be another thing. Or it might be brainwashing. You know, I was raised in, as you know very well, I was raised in Portugal. And I had to learn, really naively, I was protected from all this stuff. I had to learn about anti-black racism at the age of 12. Because I didn't know it existed. Because it wasn't in any of the culture and any of the media. I wasn't saying it in the media that was there. I'm not saying Portugal in the 80s was some sort of utopia where there was no racism. I just didn't see it.
Right, okay.
So the only... this is a weird story, this. One of the few... You know that, like, in Portugal, they gave us, on the national TV stations, they bought old TV shows from America because they couldn't afford the new ones.
No.
Right. So I was raised on shows from America in the 1940s and 1950s.
Yeah.
Like I Love Lucy and The Twilight Zone, but not the modern Twilight Zone, the black and white Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
The Rifleman. All of these old shows that, like, only Americans over the age of 60 would even recognize. Probably, like, I'm sure not many people under the age of 60 would even know that there's a TV show called The Rifleman.
Yeah.
You know, so I used to watch The Twilight Zone, the old version of The Twilight Zone. And I went to the cinema in Villamora with my group of friends, and we went to see Mississippi Burning. And I remember going to see that film, which is all about...
Gene Hackman?
Yeah, it's Gene Hackman and your man there, Willem Dafoe.
Oh, right, okay.
And
he must have been young.
Yeah, they're a lot younger. And the film portrays a period in the 30s or 40s where the KKK were very active, and they were taking black people off the street, torturing them, and then killing them. So I go and watch this movie, and I come home, and Mum says, what do you think of it? And I was like, it was good, it was engaging, but it wasn't very realistic.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, it was kind of like an episode of The Twilight Zone. It was like a what if the world went crazy and for no reason whatsoever, white people just take... And I was like, it's not believable. It wasn't very believable. She was like, you do know that's a true story. And I was like, what? come again? And she was like, you know, that happens. That's a real thing. There's this group called the KKK, and they would go out and they would just get black people and kill them. I was like, why? Why did they do that?
Yeah.
Because they hate black people. Why? You know, that annoying kid
Yeah.
question. She's like, well, you know, we stole them. We took them to another country. We forced them to live there. We enslaved them. And then we freed them. And we were pissed off looking at our mistake. Felt really guilty. Internalized it. Did some sort of weird Freudian sublimation routine, and then started extending that aggression back outwards. You're making me feel guilty, so I fucking hate you now.
I have read somewhere else, only very briefly, about the idea that in America that the white it's not really, never really working class in America, isn't it? We don't really have a class system. That sort of, what do we call it?
Blue collar.
No, yeah, blue collar, but we also
They do say working class, don't they?
do we say working class? Okay, a very
No, they say blue collar more than working
blue collar.
class,
So
I think.
a very an economic group of white people who had absolutely zero chance of climbing any ladder, but are constantly told in America that if you want something and you work hard enough, you'll get it, which is a bigger topic, which is completely untrue in my opinion.
Which is untrue.
But if you work hard if you work hard enough at anything, you'll get it.
Okay.
But they constantly have that shoved down their throats. So this is the land of opportunity, and you can do anything you want. But anyway, to cut the story short, the author comes to the point to saying that everyone wants to feel like someone is less than them. It makes them feel better about themselves.
Okay.
So this person who's got no chance of climbing any socio-economic ladder, the only person they've got to look down upon is ex-slaves.
Right.
So that's why they became racist, which is a separate point of view from probably a more sociological point of view than a psychological one, probably.
Yeah. Well, it would be fairly standard operational procedure for sociology to provide more practical reasons for why these psychological effects occurred than psychology would.
Yeah.
That's why I spent most of my dissertations quoting sociology research than psychology research, because psychology research didn't show much. Sociologists would come up with a reason for it. It sounds plausible. It then makes me think you probably kind of need to define what racism actually really is and what the different strands of racism really, really are. But you could argue that it's a kind of, bring it back to psychology and personality disorders, it functions as a kind of group narcissism in which black people are scapegoated as a convenient, they're just a convenient scapegoat. They don't have the social advantages and the economic advantages that make it so that they can defend themselves properly. And so in their inability to defend themselves, they just become a useful bucket into which you can sling all kinds of psychological and emotional dark matter.
Yeah.
I'm not it does seem to be worse in America. I don't want this podcast to be like an America bashing podcast, but it does seem to be a lot worse in America than it is here. It's not great here, but the different strands of society as they are grouped by ethnicity and race, those boundaries seem a lot stronger and a lot thicker. I don't think you can just flow easily between different ethnic groups.
Can we explain that though? Because of the way America's been built, it's been built in a way that when when town planners are building places in America, because they've got a blank canvas, they build the most efficient road system, the most efficient housing system, the most efficient, etc., etc., etc. So we get people moving the ways they want to do. So you end up with blocks. But when you end up with blocks, you end up with a freeway system, which means you end up with these huge roads cutting swathes through different towns, so you don't get people living on top of each other. Okay. Maybe except for New York. Could that be an explanation for it?
I don't know. That sounds like a very sociological viewpoint. You'd need to, for an American, if you're swimming in that water, you don't realise that you're swimming in that water. So in America, when you look at maps of cities versus what you'd see in Europe, our cities grew up around hamlets and around villages, and usually there's a well or a monument at the middle, and it grew over centuries, and they're quite twisted, weird. They have shit side streets and one-way systems and all of that. But in America, we look at your cities and we go, holy shit, this is organised. Because it's, as Will just said, it's blocks. You created it in grids because you were conscious of, because of the time scale in which they were created. So it's important to say. Whether that creates those strong social divisions between economic groups and ethnicity, I'm not sure.
Because there was a really good book I read just as I was leaving university, and I can't remember a lot of the content right now, but it was called City of Quartz. But now I'm thinking I might revisit it, because I remember it being very interesting and it being about what do we call it? South Central California? I think that means LA.
South Central California?
Yeah.
South Central is an area of LA.
Right, okay.
But I don't think there's a South Central California. So the book was written about South Central LA.
Yeah, I remember South Central, so it must maybe South Central LA.
I think so, yeah. I think so. It's not nice.
Is it not?
No.
I'll take read City of Quartz.
I think that's where we'll be driving through when I come and pick you up from LAX to take you down to Encinitas.
Okay.
You will spend the first 20 minutes of that journey going, South Central. Good day to you, and now I know what all those Dr. Dre lyrics were about. I'll drive you through Long Beach. In fact, I'll make you jog alongside the car. We'll go through Long Beach. Good luck, William. Hello, everybody. We're English. Sorry about that.
Because something that I was thinking about the other day when I was reading another article after the last podcast, I was reading an article about kids in areas with high gang, and it was actually about London, the article, but it was also talking about sort of drawing comparisons of areas in America about kids in those places at 16, 18 having PTSD.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. 100%.
I had no idea that it could be it's that bad.
But kids around here have PTSD. Kids, we're in Port Sunlight now, but you go to New Ferry or Rock Ferry, that's an environment that will create PTSD. That's why psychopathy and borderline personality disorder is so prevalent around here.
Right.
And why people are so violent. Like, we are this is a weirdly violent area.
Do you think?
I 1,000% guarantee you that if you go to fucking Sweden and say, how old were you? Say, any random person in Sweden say, how old were you the first time you were punched by a stranger? They'll look at you like you're insane. Whereas for us round here, you'd be like, well, the first time I was 15, and then I was 17, I was at a bus stop, and then I was 18. I mean, it's not like people are being shot to death and stabbed here, but you will get, I was beaten up by strangers a couple of times. You've been punched a few times by strangers.
I got beaten up by strangers when I was 6. No, I was a bit younger than that. I think I was 15.
You got punched in Port Sunlight, didn't you?
It was walking between Port Sunlight and New Ferry. I was walking home.
That's your normal.
Yeah.
And in Sheffield, it's normal. And in Newcastle, it's normal. And in Birmingham, it's normal. And in Glasgow, it's normal. Yeah. But for the vast majority of this country, it's not normal. This is a rough area.
But I don't know whether the Ross Kemp, how accurate the Ross Kemp documentaries are. But it seems a hell of a lot worse when he's showing videos of people in MS-13.
It is, but to bring it back to psychology, it's relative. Like, PTSD is caused by feelings of
PTSD is relative.
Absolutely.
Ooh, explain.
Well, and the threat is relative. So PTSD and CPTSD will be caused by overwhelming feelings of abandonment, by feeling unsafe, and by feeling under threat. And at a certain level, whether you're under threat of being glassed or punched versus you're under threat of catching a stray bullet, adrenaline is adrenaline.
Okay.
So you might not find necessarily worse PTSD in an area where I don't even know where MS-13 operates, I guess. But that's a Mexican gang, right?
I think it's a Mexican gang. It might be, or maybe one of those Nicaragua or something like that. I can't remember.
All right, so say there's like a really active, violent area that's controlled by gangs somewhere in California, and you take a kid of age 16 from that place, and you compare that with somebody who's been raised in Toxteth or somebody who's been raised in the North End.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see, like, this kid from this area has worse PTSD than this kid from this area. I think you're just going to see a kid with problems.
Right.
Yeah. And it's an environment in which personality disorders as a defense mechanism become rife. Psychopathy is really a description of a personality disorder that is just criminality. If you want to know what a psychopath is, you go to a jail. That's how that's how our definitions of a psychopath, they came from the American prison system. The most extensive research on psychopathy and sociopathy came from America, and it came from their prison system because that's where the money was spent on the research, and because the sample size is so huge, because the prison population is so fucking huge over there.
Right.
So that's where the PTSD that comes from an extremely hostile environment, that will manifest as narcissism, as borderline personality disorder, and psychopathy eventually. A psychopath is a well-adapted human to an extremely violent and chaotic environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what's going through my head now? It's very stupid. But so World War I veterans had what do they call it? Shell shock.
Battle stress.
But someone who's what I haven't seen though is that type of disorder manifested after World War One, or it hasn't been well enough documented, but I haven't been able to read about it. So if I was in a situation where I was living in such a bad area, I've been reading quite a bit about Nottingham in my last year, but I'm constantly hearing gunshots. Is that not going to cause shell shock? Or is that not intense enough? Is that a completely different psychological disorder?
It depends on the individual's resilience and how they process and attach meaning to the gunshots that they can hear. Nottingham is a very, very violent place. Very, very violent. And yeah, over time it could create PTSD. PTSD and shell shock are the same thing. They're just different words for the same phenomenon.
Is it different manifestations of what happens?
Nope. It's exactly the same. We just didn't know as much back then as we do now.
Okay.
So shell shock and battle fatigue are just a less nuanced, less eloquent way of saying post-traumatic stress disorder. But yeah, that absolutely it happened, and it manifested as it created personality disorders and it created criminality. If you look at a TV show like Peaky Blinders, some of which was shot here in Port Sunlight, the main members of the gang are all World War One veterans. The leader of the gang is a World War One officer.
Yep.
And it's openly described how they're using alcoholism and an addiction to cocaine and addiction to adrenaline and violence, which fuels their criminality, and it comes from PTSD. This is the wonderful thing about personality disorders and PTSD. It bridges it transcends all racial boundaries. I mean, there's no racial boundaries or ethnic boundaries when it comes to evil and when it comes to violence and the effect it has on the human being. Like, that's one of the things that I've seen with the work that I'm doing. Is it's just there is no real
so there's no
difference.
Option to be able to stereotype.
Not only in as much as what I described to you in one of the other podcasts, which is to stereotype the relationships, which is that narcissistically abusive relationships usually occur, or I have seen them most prevalently occur, between people from different ethnic groups.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's the most prevalent thing. But stereotyping, no, I've had a lot of American female clients try and suggest that British men are more narcissistic.
Okay.
Yeah, because they had relationships with British men that didn't end very well for them, and I'm like, that's not how science works. You don't take your personal experience. Some guy was traveling through America and he got his accent on you, and you got into bed with him, and then he carried on traveling and sacked you off. No, that's not. So that's not necessarily narcissistic abuse. That's just a bad decision and a bad mistake.
Yeah. I mean,
so no, there are cultures that we can say are narcissistic or more likely to produce narcissism, but there isn't an ethnic group that creates narcissism. High PTSD, highly violent, where there's a lot of abandonment of children, they create personality disorders. And have you noticed how the stereotype of Scousers, of white people from the Northwest, matches the stereotype of black men in America?
Never thought about it like that, but now you say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to steal from you.
Yeah.
We're going to wear a tracksuit during the day, even though you're not actually playing any sports.
Yep.
I'm going to not look after my kids. I'm going to disappear on my own children. I'm not going to pay child support. I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to steal, I'm going to fight over nothing, and so on.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same fucking stereotype. So is that an ethnic stereotype, or is that a stereotyping of a socio-economic group? What are the same factors? Well, the same factors that are creating behaviours in this human being over here are the same ones creating them over here. Scouse fathers having loads of kids with loads of different mums and then disappearing. There was I remember, like, in London where I was doing security work, and there was black doormen I was working with, and they were talking to black female bar staff, and they're having a bit of a laugh and a joke, and they were going, "Oh, well, this lad's from Liverpool." And I walked off. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, and they brought me back, and they were like, "Oh, tell her, what are Scousers known for? What are you like?" And I'm like, "Well, I like fighting for no reason, having kids with strangers, and then walking off and not looking after them." And they laughed. But the girl behind the bar, the London girl behind the bar, didn't know. She was young. She didn't know that that's like a Scouse stereotype.
Yeah.
And you could see the confusion. She's like looking at me and going, "But that's but you're what? You're white. But you're white. You're clearly white." And I was like, "Yeah, well, but it's the same environment. It's an environmental training."
Yeah.
I am very much a follower of Professor Zimbardo, who cites something that he calls the Lucifer effect, which is that it's the environment that creates the behaviors. There is no scientific evidence to suggest that genetics creates your personality. Zero, none. There's nothing there to suggest there are genes for aggression or genes for stealing or genes that would make you want to wear a tracksuit in the middle of the day even though you're not going to play tennis.
Right, okay.
We haven't really discussed immigration yet, but
No.
go on. It looked like you had a thought there.
Well, no, I was thinking that okay, so there was no genes that necessarily have a prevalence to violence, which I don't know because I haven't read about it. I wouldn't try and start because I don't think I'd have any clue what I was reading. But what I would say is that men create more testosterone. More testosterone definitely makes some people more violent. Is that right? I don't know.
Careful, William. No, it doesn't. It's a fallacy. It's
Okay.
It's not total nonsense. So that we don't get sidetracked, I'll sum it up in this way. Number one, in the medical community, the doctors, they're the authority. I'm an authority on psychology. Psychologists get to be an authority on psychology and how patterns of behavior develop. Doctors get to be the authority on what hormones do and don't do. And the special type of doctor that deals with hormones is called an endocrinologist. And if you say to them, does testosterone produce aggression and does it make people more aggressive? Most of them are going to be fairly non-committal because they really don't know.
Okay.
We actually know way less about what hormones do than we think we do.
Okay.
So the idea, testosterone, male, aggression, forward moving, estrogen, female, loving, kind, doesn't work. It doesn't work. We a very, very simple example would be a guy with high levels of testosterone sinks into a depression and doesn't want to leave the house.
Right. Okay.
That can happen. We talk about adrenaline. You say you get into a fight or flight mode, you get this surge of adrenaline. Well, actually, it's not just adrenaline. It's a whole cocktail of things that are going off inside your body. Some of it is hormones and some of it is other things, without turning this into a biology lesson, that make your body function in a different way. So no, we really don't know that. The second thing to realize is the way that people talk about a subject, the things that you read online, the things that are printed in magazines, 9 times out of 10, a lot of that is bollocks. I mean, people were talking I hope that they've stopped now, oxytocin, the love hormone, the bonding hormone. It makes you feel good about people. Oxytocin is what you release when somebody cuddles you and you feel good. And then they were like, well, actually, we found that oxytocin is also highly released when you're completely fucking heartbroken. Oxytocin is also highly released when you're on withdrawals from heroin. So to go, this hormone does that? No, we can't do that.
It's too difficult.
It's way too complex. And there are so many factors that affect people's behavior. The other thing is, and this ties back into racism and then we'll bring it to immigration, is you've got to be very careful about things that feel good. So the idea that testosterone, man, aggression, estrogen, woman, softness and femininity and nurturingness, it's like it slots into place in a way that feels logical and makes us feel like we're in control and it feels good. Similarly, if you want to start an argument online, tell people that genetics have no effect on their personality or on their behavior. People froth at the mouth with rage. They go berserk over that because it's an intrinsic part of who we think we are.
Yeah, but there's an intrinsic discourse about doctors, isn't there, and that they're right, and that's where we get our knowledge from.
Well, doctors aren't telling us that genetics are controlling personality.
Touche.
There is literally, they tried. It was called the Genome Project. They're like, we're going to break down the genes. We're going to find out what genes do what. We're going to be able to, this was like when I was a kid back in 99, 2000. This was the big promise of the Genome Project, which was this huge flop. They're like, we're going to break down every single thing and we'll tell you what every single gene does. They fucking couldn't do it. They tried breaking it down and they were like, actually, our genetic code is pretty fucking simple. Actually, our genetic code isn't that different to the genetic code of a mosquito when you actually start looking at it at different levels.
Yeah.
So in its essence, like, it really has very little impact on your personality. My personal opinion at this point, until science reaches a point or somebody can prove me wrong, is that your genes don't fucking care. Your genes don't care whether you like vanilla ice cream or whether you vote conservative or whether you're racist or whether you're very open or what, it doesn't. Your genes are stupid. You're a sock for the carrying of DNA and your purpose is to reproduce. And if you're a left-handed lesbian woman who loves Slavoj Zizek and hates Elvis Presley, and you get with another woman and you're never going to reproduce, you're never going to be able to have kids, and you've got no plans of adopting, your whole body and your brain and your genetics and your hormonal system will go, well done. You'll feel just as good. You'll feel just as amazing as if you get with somebody and you are going to reproduce.
Right.
Because the system doesn't know. Love, this is why all the love songs and the poetry say, love is its own reason. Love has its own purpose. And from a biochemical and psychological point of view, that's true. You can be just as happy in a same-sex marriage where you have no plans to adopt, where you can't have kids. You could be just as happy as in a heterosexual marriage where you can have kids. But the happiness, the biochemical happiness, is the reward system for, you've pair bonded and now you will have children.
Yeah. But I would say that aren't most psychologists, don't we agree that there's some type of genetic memory?
No. What's a genetic memory? Oh, you have walked into such a trap, William. What's a genetic memory?
Well, I haven't read a lot about it again.
I know.
But I have read one or two of it just because I thought it was interesting. But
Okay.
they flew a hawk over some birds, I think in the Galapagos, who had never seen a predator before, and they all got very scared and they all flew away.
Goodness sake. Okay, what happened is some birds who were flightless, who did have a predator in a certain environment that were hawks, somehow ended up, and I think you're right, I think it was the Galapagos or some island system.
South Pacific, let's say.
So let's say South Pacific. Now, how does this work? They ended up there, and they themselves, for generations, had never had a natural predator. There were no natural predators there. But yes, if you flew a kite over them that was in the shape of a hawk, they went, holy fuck, it's a thing that was going to kill us, and they ran away. So this gave the idea that there is something called a genetic memory. Mm-hmm. Mm. What's wrong?
Someone's debunked that already, have they?
Well, I mean, let's just sit and think about it now. What's an alternative explanation for that?
They've seen something weird that they don't like.
I think that took you 3 seconds to come up with that alternative explanation,
Yeah.
and this is not your field of study.
No.
They saw something fucking weird that they didn't like. There's a bunch of humans there flying a fucking hawk-shaped kite over them, and they were like, what the fuck are you guys doing? When we are studying like psychology, I love the subject, and I'll never leave it until the day I die. But it really is a clusterfuck, and it's so hard to keep it scientific when you are dealing with humans, to keep it scientific and to keep it accurate. When you start dealing with animals, a psychologist who is studying animal behavior can barely open their mouths before three words into a sentence. They're already projecting human feelings and human perceptions onto the behavior.
What's the
of an animal.
word?
Anthropomorphism.
That's it.
Anthropomorphism. You can impress your friends, dear listeners, by saying anthropomorphism. This is the process. Anthropo means human, morphism means changing, by which we change something that has no human traits into something that is human by virtue of, it's not a malicious thing, you just kind of, like we just attribute human behaviors to things that are not human. And yeah, they've observed a certain pattern of behavior amongst a group of birds, and they've said, aha, this is a genetic memory. However, would you like me to give you... Can you think of a counter-argument to that? Can you think of another example where we could say, yes, there is something called genetic memory?
Not that I've read, no, and not that I can think straight off the top of my head.
No. If you'd had more chance, you'd be able to think of it. A bird pops out and, without observing a parent showing it, knows how to build a nest.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Now, that might be an example of something that is hardwired as a genetic memory, but that, to me, is not... And that, to me, is at the level of survival, and it has nothing to do with what we... narcissistically and egoically call our personalities. It still wouldn't affect your capacity to whether you vote conservative or liberal, or whether you like vanilla ice cream or fucking mint flavored ice cream. Your genes don't care. Now, were I like a wolf child who was raised in the wilderness and had no other humans around me, and I got to the age of 39, if you lit a fire near me, would I move away from it as though it was potentially a source of danger? Yes. What does that mean? Does that mean that I have a genetic memory, even though I've never experienced fire in my entire life, that fire is dangerous and I should move away from it? Or am I, once you start talking consciousness, the wheels fall off.
Yeah, but consciousness without the ability to think is quite difficult. That's why I don't always understand when we bring up children that have grown up, or what do they call them? There's a specific word, don't we, for kids that have had no upbringing without people. I can't remember what the word is.
Well, it doesn't happen very much.
It doesn't happen very much, but there is a word for it. I can't remember what it is, but
your kids have been raised in the wilderness because some animals helped them.
Yeah, but if they have no language, they can't think about anything. And if they can't think about anything, they've only got their id, and if that exists. And if they've only got their id, they're only doing stuff that equals pleasure, and stuff that equals pain they don't do. So fire, warm, hot, too hot, really, really hot, run away.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking. They can't think. There's no words to think with.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So once you learn those words and you form an ego, you actually start imbibing culture. And you start to take on cultural coordinates, and you start to take on political coordinates and socioeconomic coordinates. So I, as a kid, when I was raised in Portugal, and because Angola was a Portuguese colony, I had black people around me. I would just be like, okay, people, but there was no classification as blackness inside my head. I had to learn that.
Okay.
And that's through language and through other people's experience and other people's explanations. I then have to learn that. I had to learn that there is a thing called white guilt. And then I had to learn that I should feel that.
What's white guilt?
Oh. White guilt is what you feel when things like race and immigration are brought up. You get nervous. You don't get aggressive or entitled. You get nervous. And the reason you get nervous is because you are feeling the collective weight of the crimes committed by the white race, in inverted commas, which is not a thing that exists because there is no such thing in science as a race, unless you're talking about flowers. It doesn't exist. It's a category for flora, not for fauna. But you feel that because of colonialism, because of slavery, because of all the terrible things. We are responsible for all the evil around the world.
Okay.
Jokes, blood, jokes. And so you feel that. It's also because of privilege, because you know you're in a privileged position. You're not oppressed. You don't have a war to fight. You don't have something to resist. You just live in a privileged position. So this creates white guilt. The weird thing with white guilt is you'll see people who are not white who clearly feel white guilt. Why would non-white people living inside the UK or living inside America feel white guilt? Well, because if you're living a privileged middle-class life and you're not putting rice into the mouth of a starving African or Indian child every 5 minutes, but instead you're spending time on twittering pictures of the Kardashians,
buying things that you don't need,
buying expensive trainers that you don't need, it's the guilt of the privileged. So white at that point goes beyond an ethnic classification and definitely becomes a socio-economic designation or classification.
Right. Okay.
So when you're like you like stand-up comedy the same way I do, there are black stand-up comics and they're talking about white people. If you look on YouTube comments, say what's his name, Cat Williams does a thing about white people and how he's driven crazy by white people, and it's a very, very angry bit, but it's very, very funny. And the comments are like, "This is racist. This is racist. This is racist. This is racist." And it's like, well, it's not. He's not saying white person.
Yeah.
It's talking about an institution, a classification of people, a whole social structure, which is white people.
Yeah.
You know that. You know he's not saying I fucking hate white person. He's saying white people as a for a specific purpose. I'm not saying that. I don't believe this stupid nonsense that people say, oh, black people can't be racist. I live with black people. They're perfectly capable of being totally fucking racist. That's gibberish. Any ethnic designation is capable of this thing called racism, this prejudice and this aggression against other ethnicities. And you will see that. So let's talk about immigration.
Okay, so when I read around immigration, I don't think I know enough. Really don't know enough in-depth information about the subject to really tell you whether immigration is an actual problem or not. But what annoyed me in the last two elections was this constant talk of, oh, we should have a point system, we should have a point system, we should have a point system, which seems to make people feel better about immigration. But to me, if you were going to implement a point system, I always feel like that would be us asset stripping already struggling countries, and I'd like to think if I was from a struggling country and I was intelligent enough or strong enough, or I don't know, whatever asset I had, that I'd want to stay and help that country rather than being wooed by not necessarily a better life, because who's going to say whether it is or not, but by being wooed by a stronger economic country.
What the fuck did you just say?
I feel like we want to asset strip.
Okay. What the fuck is a point system, first of all?
All right, okay, so a lot of people are talking... I genuinely can't tell you whether immigration is this monolithic, terrible thing that some papers seem to say, but then other news outlets seem to say it's not. But
you're addressing the problem halfway through an argument, halfway through a conversation. So, like... which happens quite commonly. You just like people just start halfway through, and I'm always like, well, what's the context? What are we really talking about here? Immigration is nothing more than people moving.
Yeah,
an immigrant is somebody who moved.
Yeah,
I'm 39. Since the age of 29, I've spent more time in the last 10 years being an immigrant than being in my home country.
Yeah, that's why New Zealand kicked you out.
Yes, William, because I overstayed my visa, as I did in Thailand, as I did in Malaysia, as I did in Singapore. Just fucking rub it in. And I wasn't a wealthy immigrant in any of those countries. I was a fucking poor, dirty immigrant. Sometimes quite literally. Just finish at the gym, go straight to the pub, and then had a shower. Dirty, smelly, poor immigrant. So, but that, some English people go, oh no, we're expats, and it's like, yeah, we're expats, but so are immigrants. I mean, you're an immigrant, expat, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
it's the same deal.
Yeah.
So you have this thing called an immigrant. Now, why would people consider immigration an issue in the United Kingdom? Be naive. Like, what naive? Obviously, we both know, but naively, what the fuck is wrong with immigration? What's wrong with people just coming into the country?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to say we should be borderless, that's fine. I get that. I think the majority argument that I read is that people keep taking my jobs.
Okay, so I'm not saying that we should be borderless. I think that's a bad idea. Some people adopt that position. That's not my position. The problems with immigration. People are saying that their jobs are being taken. What else is the problem with immigration? What's the thing that is really getting Brexiteers all wound up? Where they're like, shut the doors.
Oh, yeah, because some people are blowing themselves up and blowing other people up.
Okay, so you've got terrorism. Anything else? Stealing jobs, terrorism.
I can't think of anything else that they're really bad, because they don't make particularly succinct arguments, I don't think. And when I read about it, that's the only two things we tend to cling to.
No, because it's white people shouting the word immigrant over and over again,
Yeah.
and that's what you're scared of me doing. Fucking immigrant. If I do it with more of an accent, they don't say, "Oh, there's immigrants. I'm an immigrant," and the immigration occurs. That's one thing. But if I start going, "Fucking immigrant," he's a fucking immigrant, isn't he? You fucking immigrant. There is criminality. That's another issue.
Yeah, I suppose. So I mean, there's a lot of. To be fair, there's a lot of documentaries recently about what's it called, the sex trade, which seems very, very bad.
Yeah,
particularly poor coming out of Eastern Europe as well, from the documentaries that I've seen.
Sex trade.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about this point system.
So
what is it?
Point system is that as I understand it, is the more you can offer the country, the more points you get. And the more points you get is
the more who can offer the country.
More an immigrant can offer the country.
So is the immigrant afforded points, or is his country of origin afforded points?
No, the immigrant is specifically afforded points.
The individual immigrant.
Yeah.
You're saying immigrant.
Yeah.
Say the word immigrant.
No.
What the fuck, man, you pussy. I don't want to say immigrant. It might offend somebody. It just means somebody who moved.
Exactly. No, I agree. I do get that. But someone coming into
migrating birds. Can you say migrating bird?
Migrating bird.
See, you say that with no problem, but you can't say immigrant.
An immigrant moving to this country is given points based on their ability and their previous history.
Right.
And the more points they get, they pass a certain threshold, and they're thus allowed into this country.
Okay.
That, to me, feels like asset stripping a country that is already struggling.
Jesus Christ, you do suffer from white guilt. You're worried about their country of origin.
No, because you let me finish. So my point being is that if I was... See, this is what I don't get when they're saying... when people seem to be really up in arms and annoyed about this, because I'm thinking if I'm a person that's got some specific ability, or there's something about me that could help the country that I'm born in, I'd like to think that I'd stay there and try and make it better.
That sounds beautiful.
I don't know if that's... I'd like to think that's what I'd do.
Ah, would you do it? Would you do it for no money?
And it's not to say that every person coming from a different country is coming from a war-torn country or somewhere that's not as great economically. You know, France, wherever. I don't know. Pick a country. But I'd like to think that we're not trying to asset strip companies. That's what always comes to mind when we...
Countries, not companies.
Yeah, countries, sorry.
So you're saying that we shouldn't have a point system because we're going to encourage the asset stripping of other countries.
Yeah, and it seems to me that a lot of people who really seem to argue for that system, and that's all I think of when they come up with that.
Is it's asset stripping.
Yeah.
What would you suggest instead of a point system?
What would I suggest instead? Is that like I was saying before, I don't really know how bad immigration is to the country. Is it really that bad? Is it really causing that much of a problem? I genuinely don't know. So to me, it would be based on what's happened to you. I mean, it would take a lot of money, but to really investigate the person's history would be where I'd start. But I don't know whether that would be too costly.
Well, if you're going to really investigate the person's history, that's the equivalent of a point system.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
So you end up back where you started with a point system.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is not a fair place, my comrade. It's capitalism at its worst.
Yeah.
Well, not capitalism at its worst, but it's a bad version of capitalism. So this actually happened recently, where I helped somebody in Bosnia who's a brain surgeon to get a job outside of Bosnia. And he wants to leave Bosnia because local gangsters at his hospital, he fell out with them and they fucking burnt his car.
Jesus.
He wants his kids to be able to speak English and go to decent universities because they're bright kids. And Sarajevo is just in a place of economic darkness that can only get darker.
Yeah.
So he's asked me to, we did some phoning round. I wouldn't sponsor him because I couldn't sponsor him. I mean, there is a chance that there will be there's 4 teenagers in Sarajevo right now that at some point I will probably be sponsoring, helping to go to universities in the UK. But he doesn't need me sponsoring, but his English isn't great. So sometimes he speaks to headhunters in the UK who actually send him to the Middle East.
Right.
So in the Middle East, they will recruit cheap doctors and surgeons from Bosnia who are Muslim to do the surgery on other Muslims in the Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a potential thing. Now, was what you were saying that like through some sort of duty to Bosnia, he should stay there and just...
No, I just feel that if we're better off, we shouldn't only base our immigration policy on taking the best from other countries. You know, there should be... I think it's perfectly plausible for us to say we can help out as well.
So we have a duty to help.
Not necessarily a duty. Why is it? I don't know why it'd be a duty. I just think it's a nice thing to do.
So that's another one. Well, a nice thing to do is a duty by any other terms.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, so it's like a Scandinavian sort of a view. Or, sorry, I should be specific now, because many Scandinavians would be like, we don't fucking want them. The way that we used to think about Scandinavia was, hey, we have plenty of things, you bring them here. Yeah. I don't know why people would have a Dutch accent in Scandinavia. I've lived in Sweden. I've lived in Malmo. Speaking of places in Scandinavia that have an immigration problem, Malmo has a problem, especially with the sex trade and the criminality and the drugs that the immigration has brought there. I'm not sure. I don't think you're going to get people to sign up to that idea en masse.
Yeah.
But the question I would ask you is that a good long-term, broad sweep solution to the problem of immigration? Is to say, okay, we should help other countries.
Yeah.
Okay. Who does it advantage?
Well, it advantages us, surely, doesn't it? If you bring up if you increase education, if you increase their economic prosperity, if you increase a different country's propensity to, I don't know, commit some type of violent act as a country.
Sorry, how does immigration here affect people's propensity to commit violent acts in a country over there?
Well, if you're going to upskill someone, I would say they're less likely to lose control of being very extreme of their nuclear arms.
So if we let more immigrants in here, there's going to be less nuclear war elsewhere.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you were saying, should we spend money and help other countries?
No, we're not talking about foreign aid. We're talking about immigration.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I thought that's what you were getting at.
No. I'm just asking very naive questions. I'm asking questions innocently that don't have like implications behind it. So are you saying let more people in, don't run a point system, just let people in because it means that there will be less violence in their country later on?
No, I didn't mean that. Sorry, I thought we were talking
because
about...
I
thought we were just
called
talking about
you a liberal cuckold earlier today as a joke, but that really is pathetic.
I thought we were talking about foreign aid.
That is total cuckoldry. That's what the right accuses of, is of being cocks, of saying, oh, please, if we let in more immigrants, will you please not bomb us anymore or commit terrorist acts? I mean, that's not what you're suggesting.
No,
right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, but you said that there was a propensity to use violence in other countries that might be brought down by a more open immigration policy in wealthier nations.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
I don't understand enough about it. But possibly, yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
How would us having... because I think I'm asking this question because I think you're a good avatar of, you're young, you're the next generation, you're liberal, you're open-minded. I think that a lot of people think this way. How, say, name a violent nation that has committed violence towards us recently.
I don't know.
Okay. So we're going to bring in immigrants from, let's say, Egypt.
Okay.
In the hope that extremists from Pakistan don't commit terrorist acts here.
Well, no, that doesn't make much sense.
No, it fucking doesn't. Where do you think the violence is coming from? In terms of like immigrant countries that are coming here, where's it coming from? Do you know what the ethnicities of the terrorists were recently in this country or in France? Do you know which country they're from?
I think I remember the Charlie Hebdo ones, and I'm sure someone told me Bangladesh, but I don't know whether that's true or not.
Okay. And the ones in London, do you know where he was from, whether he was Bangladeshi or Pakistani or Indian?
I thought they were English. They were born in England.
Okay, and what was their ethnic descent?
I don't remember.
But they were Muslim, presumably, because they did it for ISIS.
Apparently so, yeah.
So if we have a more open policy to their countries of origin, which are more likely to be Bangladesh or Pakistan than they are to be India, which is a predominantly Hindu country, then maybe ISIS will view us more favourably and people won't be killed in the street.
That seems quite stupid, doesn't it?
No, it does seem stupid, but I think that, like, I don't think that your suggestion of that is unusual. I think a lot of people think about this. And one of the problems that we have is that we're not trained in philosophical thinking. And so people start a conversation halfway through and then they don't take things through to their logical conclusion. Mm-hmm. The Bosnian lady that I was involved with had the belief that no country should have an army because that would have stopped Serbia from invading Bosnia.
Yeah, but that doesn't that fly in the face of what did Thomas Hobbes say, that the government or the state is there to protect the citizens of that state?
Did he?
Yeah, I know I'm trying to remember sort of sixth form. I can't remember. It always seemed to make sense to me to have an army, and not necessarily for political gain or for land grabbing, but more just to say, more to create stalemates.
So when I discussed this with her and we had a conversation that lasted longer than an hour, we eventually got to the point where she realised that she hadn't really thought it through.
Right, okay.
She hadn't actually really thought it through. Like the idea that what will stop violence is to have a government-made policy to just ban guns is going to stop violence. On the face of it, it might seem to make sense, but when we take it further to its logical conclusion, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
So this issue with immigration of having more open borders, are the terrorists who are here killing people, killing innocent civilians here because we don't have open immigration policies? And that's a naive question for the purpose of philosophy, for philosophical investigation.
I don't think there's anyone here killing anyone. I don't think there's any terrorist in England killing anyone because of our immigration policy.
What are they killing people for?
I think probably majority of them have been brainwashed.
Okay, so what are the people behind them? Why are they doing it?
Well, either they've got some type of quite warped ideology, or they've grown up in a place where I think they've probably been bombed since they were about 5, so they don't like us.
Okay, they've been bombed by us.
Yeah.
So it's our foreign policy that they're pissed off with, not our immigration policy.
No, yeah, definitely.
They probably don't give a fuck about our immigration policy.
No, I'd say they didn't, probably.
Because if you're a diehard Salafi, Wahhabist Muslim, you shouldn't want to live in this country.
No.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We need to get there. We need to get there at some point during this podcast, which is the thinking around this is very fuzzy because people aren't really following things through right the way through to their logical conclusion. The idea that if we have a more open immigration policy, there'll be less terrorism is totally fucking fallacious.
But it's the opposite way as well, isn't it? If we have if we pull back much more, it's still not necessarily going to create less terrorism in the country.
Absolutely not. The immigration policy that we have has almost nothing to do with the terrorism issue in this country.
I'd agree with that.
And if you want to get specific, you really need to look at how much of a terrorism issue we really have. If you're talking about mortality per annum, it's not a huge issue compared to other issues. It really isn't. It creates a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
Because it's a potent symbol. The idea that people from a completely foreign ideology from another land that we can't point to on a map for most of us are coming here and killing us because they hate our freedoms. That's what they're taught in America.
Okay, yeah, well, I imagine that.
And that has bled into our culture as well. The idea that Muslims are killing us because they hate non-Muslims. And that's not the truth, is it?
I wouldn't have said so, no.
No.
But then you grew up in more of a time of the Troubles in Ireland. I know you weren't necessarily here because you were in Portugal, but you will have had friends probably similar age. I presume there was some pretty bad feelings towards just a general lack of empathy towards Irish people.
It was nothing like this at all. And by the way, I was just most recently an immigrant in Ireland, funnily enough.
Oh, true, yeah.
Because we are the descendants of immigrants from Ireland. And then I fucking went back. And I was a dirty fucking immigrant in fucking Ireland. I went back to Dublin. And they're like, "You fucking immigrants, what are you doing here? Taking our jobs." Yeah, no, it didn't feel like this. It really didn't feel like this. People were like, well, some people are extremists. It wasn't Christian terrorists murder or Catholic terrorists murder Protestants. It might have been in the Irish media.
True.
Sectarian violence still goes on every week. Did you know that?
Yeah, I do. I've got a friend in the bomb squad in Northern Ireland.
And he's telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
So most people in this country don't think there's any more sectarian violence, but living there, every fucking week I'd see it in the papers there was sectarian violence. There's a media blackout on the situation in Ireland, but that's probably a subject for a different day. This whole issue of immigration and its relationship to terrorism has become very, very fuzzy, and let me just be really, really brutal. The reason why it's fuzzy is because people are too thick and too preoccupied with other things to actually think it through properly and get the facts. The image that we're shown is a sea of brown men, of brown and black men of fighting age with beards shouting Allahu Akbar, who want to come here and murder everybody. And it's like Game of Thrones. The White Walkers coming down from the north, but we have the Brown Walkers coming up from the south. It's like The Walking Dead, just a sea of zombies. And
imagine if someone just clipped that bit out of the podcast.
Then I will definitely be branded as a racist and a bigot, and I'm ready because I'm brave, and social media pain can't hurt me. That's the perception. Like, they're coming here, they're taking jobs, they're committing terrorist acts and blah, blah, and so on. So one of the points that I wanted to make in this podcast is our economy is addicted to immigrants. And I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong. I'm stating it as a simple fact. We are as addicted to immigrants and the cheap labour that they provide as we are to the black market and the drugs economy. If you took drugs out of our economy, it would collapse. If you took immigrants out of our economy, it for fucking certain would collapse. Our whole economic recovery is in the United Kingdom, because we're still trying to recover from the last crash, is not wholly dependent, but very intrinsically dependent on letting immigrants in. So this idea, like Theresa May comes out and says we're going to reduce it down to less than 100,000 immigrants a year, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. They know perfectly well that they cannot do that. It's nothing more than political rhetoric.
Well, I mean,
we depend on them. We need them. We're addicted.
But when she talks about immigrants, and when I think about immigrants that are being paid less than minimum wage and aren't being given the workers' rights that should be afforded to them in this country through whatever legal system, that those immigrants are probably illegal immigrants, so they won't be included in the stats.
Right.
So that's what I always think about when she talks about reducing the amount of people coming into your country.
You think about the illegal immigrants who won't be in the stats.
Yeah, but then that seems to be who she's actually talking about.
Sorry, are you saying she's talking about illegals or legals?
It feels to me like what she's actually talking about is illegal immigrants.
Right.
But then she uses stats about legal immigrants.
No, she's actually talking about legal immigrants.
Right.
Yeah, that whole promise, that campaign promise is about legal immigrants, and they are talking about a point system for them. And what the rhetoric now is, we're going to look at the quality of people who are coming into the country. We're gonna try and sort out by qualitatively who's coming in, rather than focusing so much on numbers, which they've had to prevaricate on that point because they know very well they can't maintain 100,000 immigrants is just not realistic at all.
But my line of thinking is that she's saying that by reducing the amount of people coming into the country, I'm going to get rid of this, what's called an immigration problem of people willing to work for less money and willing to work under conditions that they shouldn't have to work in. But to me, the majority of those people are illegal immigrants, so won't be included in that 100,000 or whatever she wants to reduce it to 80,000. So she says she's going to reduce it by, I'm going to reduce it by 20% next year to 80,000 legal immigrants. But what she's really saying is that I'm going to stop people working in that way. But they're the illegal immigrants, so they're not included in that 80,000 or 100,000. Does she actually know what she's speaking about? Is she just trying to fool us? I don't know. Am I completely wrong?
I can give you a very straightforward answer to that. She does know what she's talking about. She knows it's bullshit.
Right, okay.
She knows it's absolute fucking nonsense. But I'm not totally unsympathetic to the position that she's in, which is she has to say these things because Brexit.
Right.
Campaign promises were made. They can't renege on all of them. They can't, at this point. Theresa May has come out. She's trying to do her Iron Lady impression. Brexit means Brexit. Fucking does it. Show me. Show me how that's going to fucking work out. They've got no chance of Brexit meaning Brexit. No chance.
Right.
The only thing they can do is ultimately they will have to submit to all the demands that the EU makes. They're going to make it as painful as possible to teach everybody else not to try and leave. Ever again. The campaign promises of reducing immigration are gibberish. The country is going to be in a bad enough state as it is without gutting it by tearing out the immigrant labour force. They just can't afford to do it. This country is functioning now and has functioned for many years like a badly operated business. It's a business that's falling apart. It's run incompetently. It's run shoddily. People are only interested in their political careers and their own individual political legacy. They have no sense of duty or commitment to their actual responsibilities. They're not interested in what is good for the nation, what is good for the many. They're only interested in just keeping this whole fucking sham going for another couple of years so they can strip the money out that they're looking for and go and buy a mansion in the home counties and retire.
Well, this is why I've never understood the point in New Labour. It always felt to me like it was someone who was more concerned, okay, rebrand, does really well, etc. But it always felt like, to me, someone who was more interested in being in power than actually doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's how all politicians feel to me now as I've got older. It feels like they're more concerned with being in power than policy. And I know I talked before about I don't like the idea of ideology, but I don't even think that... I think that any politician now is willing to tread all over their ideology was meant to be so special for them if they can stay in power. They're much more willing to give out populist policies.
How can you have politics without ideology?
Well, like I was saying before, I think that's what Macron ran on, and he say, okay,
stand for everything and stand for nothing.
No. I think what he's saying is that if one policy is what would be considered very far right, but is very good for the country, I'll do that. But if another policy is considered particularly centrist, but it's good for the country, I'll do that. And if another policy is deemed to be very left-wing, but it's good for the country, I'll do that. So I think one example he gave was that I'll strengthen the power of unions, but I will also reduce taxes for companies such as Apple, Microsoft, whatever, I don't know, a more multinational country. But those two policies for a party who is either right wing or left wing couldn't do that.
Yes, that's true. So we've covered immigration, and do you feel like you managed to get through that without looking like a bigot or a racist?
Hopefully.
Okay, because now we're going to do Islam.
Excellent.
So let the fear rise back up.
Well, I do wanted to say something actually that I thought was really interesting. Not the last election, but the election prior to that, there was an economist, and I want to say on the BBC, but I can't remember. And they were talking about Ed Miliband, and the economist came on and said, this is how much spending is on the NHS. And this is how many people exist in this country. When we get to, I can't remember what number he said. He said, okay, you get to 70 million, NHS still functions in the amount of taxes we draw in now. When you get to 75 million, starts to struggle. They've got to make a few different policy changes to the NHS. People may have to pay for a few more things, but it still basically works.
Right.
And again, I'm pulling these numbers out of thin air because I can't remember what they were.
Okay.
But then he said, and he was a very straight guy, and he was only talking numbers, black, white, pink, blue, any gender, disability, whatever. When we get to 85 million people, the NHS ceases to work with the current amount of the amount of tax we currently pull in.
Okay.
And then he started talking about the idea of Ed Miliband actually saying to the rest of the country, I will increase taxes to be able to afford to pay for this. But I think the right jumped on that and said, look at what they're trying to do. They're willing to increase your taxes to be able to pay for more people to come into this country. That felt racist.
Tell me why.
I just didn't understand why they were bothered, because I didn't think that was actually his idea. I think what his idea was to actually make the NHS better now, because he didn't see it actually increasing. They were saying, you're going to let every single person in. And
okay, what about that? You said it felt racist.
Maybe racist is the wrong word. It just felt like they were using his argument to be completely perceived in a completely different way. Probably not racist. Probably that's the wrong word, because we're talking about immigration. It was just bent. That argument just felt.
Let me feed back to you what I heard you say. A guy said that currently, if we have 60 million people in this country and this is the amount of tax we're taking, the NHS works. But when we get to 85 million, we're going to have to tax people more to keep the NHS working.
Yeah.
The right came along and said, so what you're saying is we should let in a load of immigrants and then pay more tax so that they have more social welfare to care for them.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate reflection of what you said?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and that felt racist.
Probably racist is the wrong word. I probably used the wrong word. But it just felt like that just didn't feel to me like what he was actually saying at the time.
Was he talking about natural population control, or was he talking about immigration?
Ed Miliband was talking about increasing taxes just generally with the amount of people here now, because I want to be able to do this, and I can improve this.
Well, why would the population go from 60 million to 85 million in this scenario?
No, because they had, in what I can remember of the actual debate they were having, there was one person who was particularly left wing, one person who was particularly right wing, and the person on the right was saying, increasing population means these social what's the word?
Social welfare, social benefits.
Yeah, social benefits. These all disappear because we can't afford to pay for anyone because there's too many people in the country. And the person on the left was saying that's not actually what we're arguing. What we're saying is we'd like more money to be able to improve those services.
Okay, and where would those taxes come from? If it's actually immigrants who are coming in who put more strain on the system, and you tax everybody, aren't you also taxing the immigrants that have come in?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds a little convoluted.
Right, okay.
And I think that inside of your head, the issue's not super clear. You know that it's like what they're suggesting is vaguely racist.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the argument, it seems to be, to me, it sounds too forbidding. And on the other side, it does sound rather permissive.
Yeah.
It sounds rather cuck-like to me.
Right.
To just go, oh yeah, no, totes, we're just going to let everybody in and we're just going to pay for people to be here because, we have stuff. So totes, just that sounds a bit.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty liberal.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like that was the argument that they were getting at. They were just saying. I mean, I think The Economist was also said at one point that no political party has ever won any election in the West saying they're going to increase taxes.
Yes, that might be a failure of good marketing and good communication and good psychology as much as it is anything else. I think that the Brexit vote went the way that it did because the people who were pushing for Remain did not do the job that the Brexiteers did.
Okay.
The Brexiteers just had a better psychological and sales strategy than the Remainers did.
Okay.
And they lied their way into a result, which is what used car salesmen do. Remain, there was no case made. They had nothing. They had no people they have low patience, low tolerance for massive amounts of information and fluffy debate and blah blah blah. They want to be shown in like one visual image that takes me 3 seconds to process. What does it mean if we remain? What does it mean if we Brexit? What is this actually going to amount to? And like it or not, factual or not, people were convinced that immigration is tied to fundamentalist, Wahhabist, violent, extremist Islam, and that immigration meant more terrorist attacks.
Yeah, we did do that.
Okay, so how did our side convince them that wasn't the case? Nothing. They did fucking nothing to convince them
I think they went too high.
What do you mean they went high?
Well, I mean...
Highbrow?
Yeah.
Okay. So there wasn't a lowbrow explanation of why that wasn't the case?
Yeah.
Do you think there is a little bit of...
And I think they were naive about social media as well.
Yeah, probably. I think that they were. I think they were just naive about human psychology and human nature. Do you think there is a little bit of nervousness around the issue of terrorism and Islam that is stopping people from saying, hey, dudes and dudettes, this is what the actual fucking problem is. Let's have a chat about that.
I do know a lot of people as well, but I think we're on the same line, who I've spoken to, that saw voting for breakfast as actually a protest vote because they thought it would be...
Voting for breakfast?
Voting for breakfast, voting for Brexit would be more of a protest vote because it would be such a landslide that we wouldn't get Brexit.
Yeah, I nearly went that way. Talked myself out of it at the last minute.
Yeah, I did.
Didn't think that was very mature. Just fucking vote for Trump, man. Fuck it, everything's broken. It's all a conspiracy anyway. And 2 days before I was like, that's not... No. You see now. Be a grown-up. And actually, I like the idea of... I like the idea of a united Europe and of being European. I do not like the EU. I have endless lists of criticism against the EU.
Yep.
But I don't think the response is Brexit. I mean, that's the response to just knocking all the pieces off the table and saying, fuck it, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's not, we have problems and we need to deal with them, but that wasn't the way to go. Okay, so naive question, why is it tricky to discuss Islam? 2 white men, neither of us Muslim, in a room. Why is it tricky to discuss Islam?
I haven't read the Quran.
It's a good start. That's a really good start. There's not, that's a good answer. Like, people don't say that enough. I haven't read the Quran. Do you know what...
I haven't read the Bible either, though, to be fair.
Oh, dear me. I just sought you out, boy. Haven't read the Bible. You do know your whole government, your court system, even the fucking police force is based on that.
But it's where we get our ethics from.
Yeah, that's right. Well, which is why you should fucking read it. Especially the book of Ezekiel, which features big donkey cocks and jizz. Can't remember. Ezekiel 32:20. And there she lusted after her lovers, whose members were as those of camels and whose emissions were as those of a donkey.
I hope that's right.
I swear to you, I think it's
Amazing.
Ezekiel 32:20, and
That's amazing.
she was. It says Ezekiel's writing about this one. He's like she was he calls her a slut. He uses biblical language to say slut, like a wanton or something. And she had multiple partners, and she particularly liked Assyrian cavalrymen because they were so well hung, which is of course Iraqi. That's it. That's modern Iraq, is Assyria. So I'm not saying anything, ladies, but if you know any Iraqi guys who like horse riding, the word on the street is, according to our prophet Ezekiel, pretty well hung. Yeah, no, that's your Bible, my friend. That's your Bible. So you've never picked up the Quran. Do you know what? No. Do you know what the word Islam means?
No.
Do you know what the word Muslim means?
No, but I feel like I was taught about it in RE.
God bless you for being so forthright. Do you know what the different sects of Islam are?
I know the Shiite and the other one escapes me. Iran is Shia and Saudi Arabia is Shiite, or which other way around. I think it was more than 2 though, wasn't there? It's not just like Catholic and Protestant.
You just said Shia and Shiite.
Shite.
Shite. I fucked it up. Catholics, Protestants, Shia, Shiites, shite.
Yeah.
So Saudi is Sunni.
Is it Sunni? Right.
Sunni, yeah. And Iran is Shia or Shiite. Do you know of any other sects of Islam?
No, but then I've really done a lot of reading. You want to go Lutheranism?
No. This is me putting you on the spot. The point of this is not to say, Will's dumb. The point of this is to say, nobody fucking knows. You're an educated man. You keep up with the news. Nobody fucking knows. There is nobody within a 10-mile radius of this house right now who can give us a proper breakdown of what Islam is, what the different sects are, what different Muslims believe, whether it's in the Quran, whether it's cultural, nobody. We'd have to go to the University of Liverpool and find like a professor in politics or religion or something to do that. It's not known.
No, okay.
So, to use an example from a previous podcast, do you think that your average lad on the street, even a young one, age 21, knew what Hitler believed? Knew what his policies were?
No, probably not.
I would think they knew better than we do now. I would think that like, if you're going to accept that...
Oh, sorry, we were talking previously. I thought you were talking about now.
Hey?
You're talking about someone back then?
No, back then.
Okay, sorry, yeah, you're right then.
Do you think they would know who Goebbels was and Goering?
Yeah, I think they would have done.
They probably know what they're... And that's not a question of intelligence. I think there's just less entertainment going on back then. People are going to, come home and play the drum and the jug and play the flute and sing a song, because that's how they lived back then. And then shave each other, bathe, whatever they used to do back then. There wasn't much entertainment. And so they would discuss these things. Nobody had TV, so they just listened to the radio. I would think that they would have a better idea. In this example, I'm comparing ISIS to Nazism, which is a poor example. It's a poor comparison, but it's so... Just say that you don't know. Most people don't know. I've got a better than average understanding because of living in Muslim countries, because of the number of Muslim friends that I have, and because girlfriend choices.
Yep.
Obviously, they're not very good Muslim girls, because I am not halal. There's just no way I'm even vaguely halal. But they all were certainly raised in a culturally Muslim environment, and that includes one girl was Sunni, another was Shia, and then the last girl was Bosnia, which is not really... They're like, we're Muslim.
Yeah.
They're kind of... It's a Muslim country. So there is this lack of understanding about Islam and all these different countries and what being a Muslim means. And that is a problem. So there's the fear of discussing Islam and the fear of being branded a bigot and a racist. That's a problem. And there's just a lack of knowledge. I think that people probably could do knowing, the difference between a Sunni and a Shia.
Yeah.
And an Alawite. And the fact that on a daily basis, ISIS is really not interested in killing Christians and non-Muslims. Their main job is murdering other Muslims.
Right. Okay. I don't know whether that's true, but what I was gonna point out is that I think if you ask the majority of people,
that's on their to-do list.
That's on the to-do list.
It's like kill other Muslims, kill the wrong kind of Muslim, rather than fly to France or fly to the United Kingdom and murder people there.
I get that, and that gets them a lot of publicity. But I think the other thing as well is, if we were to go out now, looking out of this window, go ask 4 or 5 of those people, do we know what consubstantiation means? I don't think they'd know. What the difference between a Catholic and Protestant is.
What the fuck is consubstantiation?
Consubstantiation.
Consubstantiation?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
So, Catholics believe that they're taking the actual body and blood of Christ.
Are you sure that's called consubstantiation? It's definitely substantiation, is it?
And consubstantiation, yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, I cut you off. Please explain to the listeners what consubstantiation
that's
is.
The difference between... Well, it's one of the main differences between being a Catholic and Protestant.
Is
that Catholics believe they're actually taking the body and blood of Christ, whereas Protestant believes that it's actually... it's a symbol of the body and the blood of Christ.
You know more about this than I do.
But that would be the main difference. But I don't. Maybe we shouldn't draw the same parallels with people who don't know the difference between Sunni.
Consubstantiation, the doctrine, especially in Lutheran belief, that the substance of the bread and wine coexists with the body and blood in the Eucharist. So when we're eating the magic rabbi, We're eating his flesh and drinking his blood, because
Yeah.
this isn't just a derivation of an older pagan religion. Good. So I actually didn't know that the Protestants did that at all. So they do it.
Yeah.
They have confession.
Yeah.
But they don't believe. I might actually know a little bit more about Islam than I do about Christianity then on that score. Because the whole Catholic and Protestant thing, when I was living in Ireland, I came to realise that actually, like, one of the ideas that I got was that Catholicism was much more rigid and fundamentalist and preachy, and actually the Protestants up in Northern Ireland they're pretty rigid and fundamentalist and preachy.
But when we talk about fundamentalist Christianity, I think we normally talk about America, and America is built on Protestantism.
Right. Do you know you can get life if you're a woman in Northern Ireland if you get an abortion?
Can you?
It's a life fucking sentence.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Life for life, they say.
Didn't know that.
Northern Ireland, you get like Ireland is just there, and there's so much I think that we really don't understand.
No, I mean, but I think it's really interesting. I mean, going completely off point, if you go and read a lot about Luther, you realise how he should be really more prevalent in history. People should really learn a lot more about this guy. You know, the guy was really thinking ahead of his time. But that's a different point to get on.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That is a little bit of a different point.
Yeah.
So the perception of most people around, and as you just proved, I don't even know about consubstantiation.
I mean, you don't even get into the English Church, which Henry VII started up, which because he considers himself Catholic. Eighth, sorry, eighth. Yeah, he considered himself Catholic, but he considered himself the head of the church.
Oh, fucking
and
hell.
not the Pope.
That was a shit description of what actually happened. Come on, Will. He considered himself Catholic, and then he considered himself the head of the church.
Yeah.
It's not quite right, is it?
Well, no, he did. He considered himself a Catholic, didn't he?
Okay, but why did he create the C of E?
So he could get a divorce.
From?
I can't remember. Who was it now? I can't remember her name. What's her name?
Was it not Catherine of Aragon? Well, anyway, he wanted
It must
a
have been Catherine of
divorce.
Aragon. Yeah, it must have been. Sorry, yeah.
Because she was a bit old.
Yeah.
And she wasn't giving him a baby.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're old and you're Spanish.
Yeah.
And I don't like you anymore."
Yeah.
And the Pope said,
No.
"What, lad?" And he went, I don't want to shag her anymore, fella. I just want to just get rid of her." And the Pope said, "No, you're married. I'm not letting you divorce." And he went, "Well, then I shall create my own church."
And the Pope at the time was Spanish.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So the Pope was Spanish, and the Pope just said, "No,
Yeah.
You're not flipping doing that, nitwit." So he just made up a church, and he called it Church of England.
Yeah.
I live in England. Church
not
of England.
Protestant.
And they're not Protestant. There you go. The one of the things that I wanted to say with this is like that lack of understanding of what Islam is and what Muslims are and what that means, I think is problematic in and of itself. The fear of being able to talk about it is problematic. But here's the thing that could get me in a lot of trouble.
What?
Do you think that Islam and letting Muslim immigrants into this country is a problem solely because they are Muslim? Boom.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but I do feel like it feels really alien to me to feel the need to hurt someone because they've got a different religion or different culture.
Are you suggesting that all Muslims want to hurt non-believers? Jesus Christ, Will. I knew you'd fall into your true racism and bigotry trap. Clink, the trap shuts on your leg.
No,
you have to gnaw your own leg off now.
No, when people do say, it just doesn't make, it seems very alien to me. But then it seems very, if you're going to give the same example for Northern Ireland, why would you want to hurt someone because we're a different religion to you?
Hang on. Because most Northern Irish people don't want to hurt.
I know, but that's the media perception you get given, don't you? You get given this whole idea, but they want to hurt you because you're different to them.
Okay.
And that just seems very alien to me.
Okay. So do you feel like we live with a perception that Muslims want to hurt us because we're non-Muslim?
I think that's what the media push, yeah.
Yeah, that's a dangerous idea. Do you know that in Islam, you're actually supposed to make other people Muslim?
No.
Yeah, you're actually supposed to welcome people into the faith. That's Islamic behaviour, is being welcoming and through kindness. Because I think, I've read bits of the Quran and that, and I've read books about the Quran, and I think what the the Prophet Muhammad said was that tolerance would breed tolerance and kindness would breed kindness. So in other places, he's like, kill the fucking infidel. Like, yeah. I'm not trying to rewrite the Quran here.
But they started it.
Yeah, well, he was like, the non-believers, yeah, they go under the sword. But in this particular, he was like, if you want to get kindness from people, you should be kind. If you want them to be tolerant, then you should be tolerant with them. So the Islamic way is you're supposed to invite people into the faith. I've spoken to quite a few of my Muslim mates about this, and a few of them don't realise this either, that in Islam, we are all Muslim. There's no such thing as being non-Muslim.
Okay.
You're a Muslim who's in denial. So a kafar is Arabic for hiding. So if you're a kafar, a non-Muslim, an infidel, you're actually hiding the truth. And the truth is that there is only one God. And the truth is also that you are already a Muslim. So you actually can't convert to Islam. You can only revert to Islam. You can only revert back to the truth of Islam. There you go.
Interesting philosophical.
Yeah, it's like a reframe. We discussed reframes last time. It's like you're not going to convert, you're going to come back to the true faith.
Oh yeah, so you're born Muslim.
So yeah, you're actually born Muslim. Because Islam, loosely translated, means submission.
Okay.
And a Muslim is one who submits to the will of God. Now, that sounds a bit funky. I think if you have like a Judeo-Christian view, you're sort of going, submission, that's what the fuck? Submission to the will of God. That's a bit mad. I think it's a bit more mystical than that. I think that it's like the idea that God is in everything, and it's an acceptance of the reality that there is a higher force. And the submission is not like, oh, I'm going to bow and scrape. It's just, yeah, that's the way it is. I think that's what it was meant to be. And I'm not trying to explain Islam because I'm not a Muslim and I'm not a scholar, but that was my understanding of it. So the behaviour is supposed to be welcoming. It's supposed to be friendly. It's supposed to be kind. And actually, when you hang out with Muslims, I was going to post this on Facebook, but I didn't. It was too soon, and I was like, I think this is funny, and my Muslim mates are going to think this is funny, but everybody else probably isn't. Like Muslim terror. I've been attacked by Muslims. They keep on trying to feed me cakes and make me fat. Like the whole methodology is to silently fatten the infidel, because if you hang out, that's what happens. If you go to a Muslim's house, they're just like, fucking eat this, and it won't be like a salad. It's gonna be cake with
lots of cake,
flaky pastry, and it's just, what did you do with this? It's made of butter. What's on top of it? Butter. No, there's just I don't know. I don't know how Middle Eastern food works, but I know it's damn fattening because every time I go anywhere, I put on a lot of weight. But it's supposed that's the ideology is actually supposed to be welcoming. So this very hostile, very aggressive, very violent thing. It's not. I'm not going to say it's a rebranding, but what it is Wahhabist Islam. It's Salafi Islam. It comes from Saudi Arabia, and it's about the purpose is domination through force and through military action. So that's actually a different thing. It's relatively new, and it's Saudi backed. And you know who's backing the Saudis? MI5.
See, I read all of this.
It's a British operation, mate.
I read that.
Who was running all those fucking ISIS Twitter accounts? Whitehall.
Was it GCHQ?
GCHQ.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, and you read all this stuff about
the lads I wanted to work for.
And that film with Tom Hanks, which I can't remember the name of the film now. When he's in Afghanistan, what the hell's the name of the film?
Tom Hanks in Afghanistan? I don't fucking know.
Oh yeah, no, when the CIA funded the Mujahideen.
Tom Hanks?
Yeah, he plays the senator but funds it.
Oh, Charlie Wilson's War.
Yeah.
Charlie, that's a great film.
So that comes out and you find out that's all true, and then there's loads of stuff coming out now, and you think, is it true? Is it not true? What?
Of course, it's fucking true. It's called controlled opposition. It stinks of British espionage. The whole thing is. That's why the
counterinsurgency.
You tit saying random words. Yeah, counterinsurgency.
I heard that once.
Insurgents and then counterinsurgents. That's why all their media is so well produced now, because it's a fucking propaganda campaign. Have you know the ISIS videos with like the music laid over the top and the slow motion walking?
Ones they show on Sky News, but they don't seem to show on the BBC, which always baffles me.
Yeah, and the production quality is so much higher. It's because it's a propaganda campaign. It's a game. It's a game that's being played.
A big scary game.
A big scary game, and Muslims end up being the scapegoats in this big scary game because what does it mean to be Muslim? I mean, you know, you're here, or you're not here, or you're wherever you are, and you're just living, aren't you? You've got to have time and money to hate another country and then plan terrorist attacks. Yeah. It requires cash. Now, if you're struggling every day for survival, you're not doing that. They've done a really good job of making the word Muslim synonymous with crazy, synonymous with rape, synonymous with explosion, synonymous with female genital mutilation. But the question I asked you, and we'll wrap with this, is there fundamentally a problem with Islam and Muslim immigrants coming into this country that needs to be addressed?
I don't know. I mean, I presume you get one argument of one guy saying that if you let no Muslim immigrants in, then there wouldn't have been any terrorist attacks. I presume would be one argument. And then
if you're very stupid.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then there'd be some other... I mean, it's just a plethora of like stupid arguments.
What do you think?
Intelligent arguments.
What do you think?
Say the question again.
Do you think there is intrinsically a problem with letting Muslim immigrants into this country? Is there a problem with Islam coming into Britain?
I don't think so, no.
I think there's a huge problem with it.
Is that because of Sharia law?
It's because of Sharia law, and it's because of basic cultural values. If you hate promiscuity and the consumption of alcohol and sex before marriage and people walking around with their flesh exposed, not behaving in a humble way, of course there's a clash of values. That doesn't equal terrorism.
No.
But I think that you've got to say, if you're going to come to this country, you're going to have some kind of an interview and some kind of a check and a balance where you say, I agree to abide not just by the laws of this country, but by the cultural values of this country, which are different. Because if you go to Malaysia, you will adhere to their cultural values or you'll get nicked. If you go to Saudi Arabia, the same thing. And I don't think it's racist to say, if you're coming here, are you aware of how we live? Are you aware of how our cultural values are diametrically opposed to some of yours? Can you live with that? If yes, tick here. If no, tick here. This is the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. If you're going to be pissed off all the time and be hating people all the time, maybe this isn't the country for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my experience of majority of Muslims that I've met. Majority is okay, but here's a question. Is it all right to hate all those things but not specifically do anything about it and just live here quite peacefully? I
don't think it's... I have a problem with that.
Do you? Okay.
Absolutely. And I don't feel like a racist or a bigot for saying that. And I feel like I can say that and look my Muslim friends in the eye. And I think the majority of them would probably agree. The majority of young Muslims would be like, yeah. In America, if you apply for American citizenship, they'll make sure that you understand what American values are.
Yeah.
And that you adhere to American values.
Yeah.
And you've got to agree with their particular view. I think that if you have a country, you get to say what the values of your country are. And it simply is a problem. I mean, of course it's a problem. This is not a halal country.
No.
We're all eating fucking pig in multiple formats all the time. You know, like I say, the liberalism, the promiscuity. And then even within Islamic countries, there's a problem. And I have a problem with the fact that in Bosnia, when I go to Bosnia, you have Saudi Arabians like to holiday there because it's cheap. And you know, Bosnians, it's the Balkans. Not everybody is like what I'm about to describe, but a lot of Bosnians, if it's summertime, they're in shorts and vests and t-shirts and whatever. Everything is pretty chilled. It's more conservative, but it's pretty chilled. You get Saudi Arabians coming over, completely covered from head to toe, masked up, faces covered, not always, but sometimes.
Okay.
And it doesn't even work in Bosnia. Bosnians don't like it.
Yeah.
They call them the Bosnian racist, in inverted commas for Arabs is they call them ninjas, and Talibans.
Right, okay.
So they refer generally to Saudis. This is Bosnians who are Muslims. They go, what do these fucking tallies want? What are these Talibans doing? Did you see them? The bunch of ninjas over there. That's how Bosnian Muslims are referring to the Saudis who go over there.
Okay.
Now that's partly like, we were talking about socioeconomic issues and maybe even racial issues. Maybe there's even ethnic issues there and resentment of a fundamentally poor country that feels like it's being exploited by wealthier people. There is a flip side to that coin where Bosnians are really grateful for the money that's coming into the economy.
Yeah.
They don't just build malls over there. They do occasionally help with education and with the medical institutions over there.
Yeah.
But it is an issue. It's an issue in Bosnia.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be an issue here? I want to go to the pub and drink a pint and eat pork scratchings, and then if I see a girl, I want to take her home and bang her.
Yeah.
There's about 5 things I'm doing there that are fundamentally in opposition to your cultural values. So what's going to happen? Is it fair, even? It's just an open, naive question for immigrant families to bring their children here and force them to live in that schizophrenic dual reality. All of my Muslim mates have grown up in a dual reality. They've grown up with what they're supposed to be like at home, and then what they actually get up to with their mates.
Right, okay.
Like if they're hanging around, if they're a mate of mine, as I said, I'm not halal.
No.
I don't have any Muslim mates who don't drink. I don't have any Muslim mates who haven't been at least
promiscuous.
Well, not in the same way that we would be, but they've certainly not adhered to the standards that would have been placed upon them by their parents. I think it's unrealistic and not very adult to move to a country that is openly stating these are our values, and then whinge like fuck when you get there because you're not happy about it. That's not fair.
Sense.
So I think that is something that does need to be addressed. I'm not implying that terrorism is occurring in this country because people eat bacon sandwiches. That's absurd.
Yeah.
However, I do wonder if some people think that. I do wonder if some people are drawing that conclusion and saying, we're being physically attacked because our cultural values are different, and there needs to be some sort of an open discourse where you can go, no, it's actually because you're bombing the fuck out of people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of my. That's how I tend to explain racism. It's your ridiculous interpretation pushed onto anything. So someone goes, I can't drive up the M6 anymore. There's too much traffic. It takes me 7 hours to get anywhere. And I go, that's because we've let all the fucking immigrants in. It's clogging up my roads. Well, no, it's a completely ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
And you're pushing your interpretation onto anything you want to.
Yes. Yeah. No, there is there is that view of racism as a kind of logical fallacy, and just a lack of an ability to think very, very clearly, which is for, as a psychologist, it's an ample explanation for the whole fucking phenomena. It comes fundamentally from xenophobia, which is the fear of strangers, and then it's just beyond that, you're just stacking logical fallacy upon logical fallacy, like. You might have heard this one. Why can't black people swim? Sorry, why are there no black Olympic swimmers?
I don't know.
Come on, you know what the reason is given.
No, I haven't heard the joke. I genuinely haven't heard the joke.
It's not a joke. It's not a joke. You've never heard the reason given for why black people can't swim?
No.
You've never heard about body fat and muscular density?
No, I haven't read into it. No, I genuinely can't.
You genuinely don't know.
No.
This is not a joke, and this is not like... This is out there, and it's cited as though it's medical fact. White people genetically are more predisposed to carry more body fat, and fat floats more. And black people have longer and denser muscles, which doesn't lend itself to swimming.
Well, I did read one thing a couple of months ago, and I didn't know whether how much truth was in it, but they were saying the one sport where females should beat males is swimming. Right. So if you had a 6'4" female with I don't know what were Thorpe's handspan and his feet were like ridiculous. I don't know, size 14, 15 feet.
Thorpe's?
Yeah, Thorpe's, yeah.
Phelps?
No, Thorpe, the Australian swimmer, the gold medalist.
Oh, I don't know. I know Phelps had massive flapping feet.
Yeah, let's say Phelps then. Sorry,
he has massive size 14 flappers.
Yeah, exactly.
on,
and huge hands. But
that are good at scooping water.
Exactly. Yeah, but the female equivalent, as long as it's the same height, same hand density, same foot density, should win because of a smaller, because of a propensity to have a shorter shoulder and have more fat deposits, which float so they're higher in the water.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know whether that's actually true at all. It was just an article I read, and it could be. But it's quite interesting that it sort of mirrors what you were saying.
Yeah. No, I think the reason I gave that is just an example of logical fallacy.
Yeah.
Like the way I really like Patrice O'Neill, and he would be like, well, where are the tennis courts in the project? Where's the,
Yeah.
You can't, there's no fucking tennis lessons in the hood. So that's why, I mean, it takes up too much space. You just think, economically, a basketball court, it's cheap as fuck. You can have iron rings. You don't cover it. It's just out there. And you can have, I don't know, you could probably have like, I don't fucking know nothing about basketball, 12 people playing at the same time. Tennis courts are going to take up more air. Swimming pools, it's expensive as shit. They've got to be heated up. They've got to be cleaned and all the rest of it. But... it's this idea that the way things happen to be are there because of genetic or biological reasons.
Yeah.
And that is the root of racism, is the idea that, well, Jews are greedy.
Yeah.
You're Turkish, so that means you like smoking, or whatever. Whatever. Or because I'm from the Northwest, I like getting girls pregnant, knocking people out, and then stealing people's hubcaps. I mean, there's nothing genetically predisposing you to these things. They become, it's like a cum hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. With this, therefore, because of this, there are no black swimmers. Okay, well that's because black people's muscles are too heavy for the water. You go, get the fuck out of here, you fucking idiot! If you put everywhere where there was a bigger black population and was like, right, fucking crazy water polo.
Yeah.
And you're going to get paid. And you're going to get sponsored. And this is actually a way for you to get through college. And this is actually a way for you to have a career. Then in 20, 30 years' time, what are we going to... come on. Fuck it. Like, by that logic then, so there's so many black people in Brazil. Why are they not all amazing basketball players? Because they're all playing football. Because of the same socioeconomic thing. You can set up a soccer, as they would have it, or football pitch, make it concrete. It's all weather. It doesn't need...
Yeah.
Loads of people can play at the same time. Guess what? Loads of black Brazilian football players, and they're all fucking great. Soccer players. Sorry for our American listeners. It's not... The human brain seeks to reverse engineer a reason for things based on reality instead of actually looking at context.
And ridiculous interpretation.
A ridiculous interpretation that is blind to certain factors. And one of the factors that we're too blind to is economics. We don't see the economics of a situation. If you're in a poor area, you can't fucking swim because swimming baths are not going to be freely available and it's not particularly easy to do and blah, blah, and so on. And so you end up with this downward spiral where nobody's fucking swimming. I tried to swim. I was rubbish at it.
It is really dull swimming.
I hated swimming.
It's so dull.
Oh, God, I hated it.
And it's really hard as well. It's like playing golf. It's more to do with your technique than how fit you are.
Yeah. No, I just didn't like having all that water up my nose. And
waterboarding yourself.
I was like being waterboarded. I would rather be boxing instead. I'd rather have people punch me in the face repeatedly than be slapped around the ears with water endlessly. And you'd be like, how much longer have I got? Oh, just another half an hour of being slapped in the ear over and over again. Right, I think we covered a lot in that podcast. Do you feel like you managed to escape the traps there? We never discussed what white privilege was. We should just tag this on to the end. Do you know what white privilege is?
No.
Okay, it's the fact that you, by virtue of your whiteness, live with certain benefits that other people don't have. And implicit within that is you're kind of blind to it. So there's privilege and then the fact that you're blind to it.
Okay, so I read a lot about the caste system in India then, so sort of similar.
I would think that most people living in the caste system, because of the arguments and the discussions and the incidents around it, are probably very aware of the caste system. So I lived with a high caste Hindu at university, and he was a nightmare. And he brought up his caste
Right. Okay.
Quite regularly. Okay. Yeah. Whatever that. It's warrior's not the highest. There's something above a warrior caste, and God, he was such pain. He'd bring his caste up all the time. It's more like a blindness. So it would be like, well, you know that your life. It's probably not that relevant because we're in a mainly white area that's actually been that got abandoned about 80 to 100 years ago and has then fallen into an economic depression. So it's not like we're skipping down the street going, yay, being white is fucking great. I love being unemployed. Yay. If you're in an area where being white was better than not, then white privilege would be a more relevant concept. Yeah. But it's brought up regularly. It's just so that you know, when you're in this type of debate in the future, there is this concept that is called white privilege, which is it's better to be white. And secondarily, you might not be aware that it's better to be white. I don't think people are going to get as frustrated or pissed off or angry with you if you say the wrong words, as if you kind of demonstrate that you don't even realize the benefits of being white. If you could be like, and I know that I'm white, so I'm responsible for all the evil in the world, even though we're from the world. And there's no fucking jobs here anymore. But in other areas, it is better. Yeah, like, okay. Overall, it's better to be white. I saw Louis C.K. did a bit about that. And he was like, oh, being white is so awesome. If I ever get to come back, I'll definitely want to come back as being a white person. Because I want to enjoy being white for as long as I can. Because this can't last. Being white won't be the best thing. Eventually, another race will take over. And then they're going to fuck white people in the ass forevermore. But it's the capacity to at least see that it's better. And I was like, yeah, I guess it kind of is better. But then when I went to America last year, I was like, oh, that's why it's so funny, is because it's so true there.
It's almost become a caricature, like a ridiculous.
Yeah. I think like a comedy is funny as if you're actually bursting the bubble on a taboo subject that releases tension. It's kind of better to be white here, but it's not massively. I think it's massively better to be white in America. Wow, it's better to be white. It's so well. The only thing I saw is California. It's not like I went to the Rust Belts of America where everybody's just addicted to heroin and dying. Being like, look at you enjoying your white privilege in your trailer as you starve to death. And you get kicked out your trailer because you can't even afford that anymore. But in California, where I was seeing like lots of rich white kids, I was like, God damn, being white is great here. And I'm glad that you look at me and you just think I'm just one of you. Yeah. Because if you dress like one of them and, you put your baseball cap on, you're now...
They wear a lot of hats in America.
That's great.
Yeah.
There were a lot of caps and a lot of check shirts.
Yeah, a lot of check shirts. I mean, sorry, just to go back to one point, I was thinking the other day after the other podcast, we talked about if a policeman hit you, you'd come you come back to your house and you'd say, we were saying that you say, oh, Mum, a policeman's just hit me.
Yeah.
And your mum would go, what did you do? And hit you back.
Yeah.
And so you idiot, you must have done something if that policeman's hit you.
Yeah.
And then when I went back, I put the news on, and it was an issue in America, and I was thinking that, and we're talking about now all the problems with police and racism and stuff in America. Can that be flipped for parts of America? Where it does. So what we were talking about was saying there's a lack of control of children. I think we were saying, and we were saying, you would get in and your mum would go, well, no, you must have done something for that policeman to hit you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about the situation, but I presumed after thinking about that and seeing what was on the news, that there are parts of America where that kid would have got in and gone, I know you probably didn't do anything.
So when you said, is there parts of America where that situation would be flipped?
Yeah.
Would be coming home saying a cop hit me and everybody just assuming that the cop was in the wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And I'd be actually wearing the wrong. We were saying that.
No, 100%. Yeah. 100%. It's the problem that I feel sorry for the institution of the police in America right now. I've trained American police, trained British police for years, and because of a few total dickheads, and they are dickheads. They should bring back, like the American Marines do, where they code red somebody.
All I'm thinking about was that Tom Cruise film.
Yeah, Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. You're goddamn right, I ordered the code red! Yeah, where they stick the soap in their socks and then beat the fuck out of that one guy.
Yeah.
They need to start doing that with the cops. They've got to get together and code red these fucking idiots who... God, I was looking at something the other day. A guy my age, a well-built and chubby a cop around my age, dragging a 14-year-old black girl around by her dreads so hard that one of them popped out.
Oh.
Ripped out of her fucking scalp. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why? Look at the weight difference between the two of you. What possible reason do you have? And he was in some psychotic rage. He was going absolutely nuts. I'm like, that's outrageous. But because of guys like him, and there's loads of videos out there of people doing that, and because they're just shooting people for the crime of being black whilst driving, which is definitely something we shouldn't do when we go to America. When we're in America, we shouldn't be black. Can we agree? Because I'm going to be... Well, it'll actually be me that's driving.
Yeah.
You're not going to drive this time. I'm going to pick you up, but remind me when I put you in the car, just be like, whatever you do, don't be black.
All I can think about is that Family Guy skit bit, but I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's hilarious. And then Peter gets arrested.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've not seen Family Guy?
I've seen Family Guy, but I don't know what you're referring to. No, there's definitely going to be the case now where if a cop does anything, it will be assumed that the cop is wrong. I mean, we've seen the dashboard footage, and I watched another thing, not the girl being ripped around by a head. White cop goes over to the window, and he says, he talks to the window, and he says to the guy, I need to see your ID. And the guy goes, I have a gun, but he's black.
Yeah.
Driving whilst black. And his girlfriend sat next to him and he goes, I have a gun, sir, but I have a license for my gun. I have a permit to carry my license. And he says, I'm going to show you my license. And the cop says, don't pull it, don't pull it, don't pull it, and then shoots him 7 times and kills him.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He was cleared of any wrongdoing in that situation.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's happening a lot. It's been happening for a long time, but we never believed it.
Right.
So when the LA riots occurred and O.J. Simpson was the thing, do you remember when the O.J. Simpson? Well, you wouldn't remember that.
Young.
Yeah, too young. But the O.J. Simpson case was going down, and the LA riots happened. Like black people were saying, no, they're killing us. They're executing us. They're rounding people up and beating the shit out of them for no reason. We didn't believe it, and then we saw Rodney King being beaten by 6 white police officers. I don't know how long the beating went on for. I think it went on for like 12 minutes. And 6 of them took turns with nightsticks to beat the fuck out of him. And then we finally saw it. Well, as people have like body cams and dash cams and phones where they can record it, it's in our faces now. We can't deny it. So yeah, it's definitely it would flip around. I mean, that Australian woman the other day, she calls the police because there's a disturbance there. They show up and they shoot her dead. She's like, excuse me, there's a disturbance in the back here, is there, ma'am? Pop, pop, pop. No more fucking disturbance now, is there? She's not armed. She doesn't even have a knife in her hand. I mean, you know, it's... So, yeah, at the moment, they have a real issue. They have a really, really big issue.
Very scary. Must be very scary. Much more scary for people who are living in it as well. Jesus.
Just don't fuck around with the cops in America, especially not in LA. Fucking hell. Whatever they say, just do as they say. There's actually in this is the last point I'll make. In Reservoir Dogs, Tim Roth, who's English, is playing an undercover cop in America, and he's nearly caught with drugs on him. But the story in the Quentin Tarantino film that the cops are telling each other in the men's toilet is that story. Is the story of pulling a guy over and saying, "Don't pull your driving license out, or I'll shoot you in the face." And that's actually a line from the film. It's like, don't pull your driving license out or I'm going to shoot you in the face. So there has to be this protocol that you have, I presume, where you just stick both your hands out the side of the window and don't do anything unless they tell you to do it. And even if they tell you to do it, maybe just do it very slowly.
And don't generalise.
Yeah. I'm reaching for my identification. Please don't shoot me in the face. Jesus.
Just a little graze in my shoulder.
Yeah, just shoot me in the shoulder, please, sir. Okay, anything else you want to cover before we wrap this one?
No, good.
Cool. All right, we're done. We out.